Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York town.
Alrighty, folks, it is that time. Another day, another Mets live stream based around, you guessed it, Mets trade rumors and news. How's it going, everybody? Hope you guys are all having a great start to your evening, night, day. Whenever you're watching this is Wardy, and we have a lot, and I mean a lot, to deep dive on the latest news and rumors regarding the New York Mets, as we are right around a week away from this year's MLB trade deadline, folks. And the rumors, they are steamy, they are hot, more than ever before, to the point that I couldn't even warrant just doing a singular video out today, folks, because by the time I was going to do that, more type of news came out that was kind of contradictory to what I was originally going to discuss. So we got a lot to break down. I want to hear everyone's reaction and how you're feeling, guys. So thank you all so much for being here. I got back home today, was on vacation for the past, 5 or so days, had a blast, but we were still making content even while out of town, and we're going to do the same here now that we're back home. Like I said, we got a lot to get into. I appreciate every single one of you guys chiming the live show right now, and everyone else, appreciate you guys being here too. Tyler's mentally preparing himself. I am, Thomas. I feel like something's going to happen over the next 24 to 48 hours. And in case you guys aren't aware, I am going to the Subway Series. I'm not going tomorrow. I apologize. I know I told people I was going Tuesday. I actually had to change of heart. It was best for my schedule to go Wednesday so I could see Mad Max as well. So that's definitely a plus. So I'm going to the Wednesday game for the series finale, the Subway Series. And I will be discussing the Subway Series later tonight. I'm recording my latest episode of Bleav in Queens. It'll be out early, 6 a.m., wherever you get your audio. And, of course, around 12 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, wherever you get your video podcast here on the WardyNYM YouTube channel. But a lot to get into. I don't want to rant too long. I do want to give a quick roll call to everyone here in the live show, and then we'll get to your comments. We will break down all the latest on the rumor front, folks, because as you see here, there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to unravel, and there is stuff coming out quite literally by the second as I am talking to you guys. But one thing is certain, the Mets are destined to make moves, a lot of moves, and let's see exactly what they're going to do, shall we? But before I do anything else, shout out to everyone here in the live show, to my upwards of 300 live viewers. Thank you guys so much for chiming in. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe, as always. Help us get to 100 likes for our first short-term goal, and help us get to 17K plus subs for our next short-term goal. Greatly appreciate everybody. Let's see, I got Dwayne in the chat. Insanity, great member, how you doing? Let's see, Greg, Jack, Mike, Keith Stone, what's up, man? Matthew, great member on the channel. Leon, let's see, Sebastian, Cloudy, Dominic, great member on the channel. How are you, buddy? Jacob, Brian, Chicken Nuggets, if you know, you know. Michael, Timothy, Brian Perez. Let's see, Brian still trying to live rent-free for Mets when he is a Dodgers fan. That's cute. Thomas, Brooklyn Mets. Let's go down the list further. Thomas, great member on the channel. And Sandy, as we discussed. Magician, Ocean Girl, how are you? JD Ray, all you guys in the chat, Brendan, my great friend and member on the channel, and everyone else. Appreciate every single one of you guys just chiming the live show now. And for people on replay, Jason Hart, Emmanuel, all you guys, appreciate all you guys immensely. But again, we got a lot of deep dive. I don't want to rant too long about just doing an introduction here. So, guys, let's just dive in, shall we? We got a lot to discuss, and this Mets team, boy, oh boy, has a lot come out. We did a video yesterday on Josh Bell and the Mets putting a trade offer in, and already things have changed a little bit in a 24-hour span. Now, in case you guys aren't aware, the Mets really like Josh Bell, and the Mets really like a lot of players that are available by this year's trade deadline, especially on the offensive front and the bullpen front. As I've said time and time again, this team is evaluating and weighing truly all options out there to be inquired by the New York Mets and potentially land in Queens. They've already landed Daniel Vogelback, who went 1 for 3, had a nice run, scored in a walk in yesterday's 8-5 victory in the series finale against the Padres. But the Mets want more. We're aware of that. So when evaluating Josh Bell, the Mets would love Josh Bell. However, reports have already come out today that do kind of contradict the likelihood, at least, of Josh Bell landing with the Mets. I never said that Josh Bell was a lock. All I knew was that the Mets made a trade offer, and I would love him on the Mets. However, Mike Rizzo, the Nationals, what are they known for? They're known for being petty. They don't want to trade in the division. That's why getting Soto from the beginning has always felt like a long shot, because the Mets would have to really garner more of a deal than what other opposing teams have to do just because they're doing an in-division tax, because of course Mike Rizzo is going to do that. That's just how it's going to be. Even with Josh Bell as a rental and say a Carl Edwards Jr. reliever-wise, or a Kyle Finnegan, guys that don't have too much control and aren't doing anything crazy bullpen-wise, solid, but nothing groundbreaking here. When the Mets made a trade offer with 2 prospects to land both Bell and a reliever from the Nationals, and it's been reported as of today by Andy Martino and others that the Mets are not the favorites to land Josh Bell. And while things can, of course, change, there just is not any traction on the Josh Bell trade front for the Mets at this juncture. And it would be almost a surprise at this point the Mets land any Washington Nationals. So, color me surprised. I don't really think anyone is surprised at this point, guys. It definitely looks like the Mets are weighing all their options. And while Josh Bell would have been awesome, thankfully there are other bats out there for the Mets, and they're not going to drastically overpay for a rental. They're not going to drastically overpay to a team that will be their rival in the division just because they're going to be petty with the GM. The Mets are not going to do that. They value their prospect capital highly. They're trying to avoid what they ended up doing last year, that being the Mets, with the likes of Pete Armstrong and others. I mean, look, you gave up PCA, a top 5, top 6 prospect in the organization, their top outfield prospect, for Javi Baez and Trevor Williams. Now, Williams has been great, but Baez ended up being a rental, and the Mets didn't bring him back. So the Mets are trying to avoid those type of situations again, where you go after big-name rentals, you give up, say, a top 5, top 6, top 7 prospect, and return, you're more than likely not even going to bring the guy back in the offseason. So I understood why the Mets are not going down that route unless the Nationals budge a little bit, because it would seem that the Mets didn't even give a bad offer. I don't see how they did. Now, the exact details, we'll see if that ever comes out. But again, guys, the Josh Bell would be phenomenal on the Mets. Are the Mets out on Josh Bell? No, they're not, but they surely aren't the favorites. It looks like a team like the Houston Astros, among some others, could be more in the lead, especially because they're all the way, of course, in Houston in the AL. That's just more feasible for what the Nationals are trying to do, which, again, I've emphasized this once, and I'll say it once more. The Mets are not trying to trade. The Nationals, I should say, are not trying to trade within the division, especially to a rival in the Mets. But let's see here. I did see a donation. I'll address that. Then we'll go forward. Let's see. HM Mehmeti, thank you so much for the $10 dono. Let's get some hype in the chat from Mehmeti. Greatly appreciate that hype in the chat to you, my man. Hope you're having a great rest of your night. Thank you so much for being in here. Guys, so we talked about Josh Bell. I'll expand on it further if you guys got questions for me in the chat as we go forward. I know that, man, the Mets and Orioles regarding apparently Mancini and Dylan Tate, that comes from a trade rumors page that isn't necessarily too that's a trade rumors page on Twitter that you can't guarantee anything. If we see it, then okay, we'll evaluate it then. However, before we get to Mancini, guys, let's talk about the build up to Trey Mancini, because I feel like he's going to be the biggest focus of today's discussion, and for good reason, guys. And what I will say right away, everybody, is that if the Mets do land Trey Mancini, it is not impossible for the Mets to land 1/3 bat. So I think it's likely, not necessarily, because, again, I don't know. I don't have any intel to tell me that the Mets will for certain land another depth bat, even in the scenario where they land Mancini. However, what I do know is that Mancini, given his versatility that he brings, should the Mets land him, that will expand further in a little bit in the show, that does give the Mets flexibility to potentially land one more bat should they wish more on the depth level, more of a Daniel Vogelback type in the sense of nothing groundbreaking, but a guy that, again, depending on matchups, can come in and be key, and a guy that isn't a first baseman as well. I'd imagine that maybe the Mets would consider someone more in the infield at third base. I don't know, maybe a Brandon Drury. But again, before we get there, let's expand on the other news that has come out today, folks, to put you all up to speed, because the Nationals are stubborn for Josh Bell. Color me surprised, right? But the Mets have now shifted and have already shown a heavy amount of interest at a potential package deal to not just land David Robertson, who they had on their radar for the vast majority of the year. If you guys don't know David Robertson, 37-year-old right-hand stud for the Cubs, has been great in the setup and closing role for them, was helped drafted by Billy Upper during his time as assistant GM to Brian Cashman over a decade ago with the New York Yankees, was phenomenal in the Bronx with the Yanks, won championships with them, knows what it takes to win it and why, and is a rental, so you're not going to have to give up an arm and a leg for him. And Wilson Contreras, we talked about him endlessly. We talked about him in our top 5 trade targets video for position players over a month ago. Contreras makes so much sense. We discussed him in recent podcasts as well, because the Mets need help catching. They acquired Michael Perez for cash considerations, a $150 average catcher that you see from Pittsburgh, right? The day after they landed Vogelback, because Tomas Nido has been dealing with some ailments, but has still been playing out and legging out games in which he's only been so productive. James McCann, he's not likely to come back until really towards the latter end of the season here. And Patty Mazeika, with all due respect to Patty, he's not an MLB caliber catcher. The Mets need help at that position. Contreras checks off all the boxes when looking at an effective offensive catcher for the Mets. However, the biggest reason why it may not happen with the Mets are heavily in on him. However, the Cubs are being stubborn as well. They have a high asking price for Contreras, and rightfully so. That's why when I discussed him in previous video and content, I said I know the Mets would love Contreras, but giving up top prospects is inevitable for someone like him, even as a rental, especially if you do a package deal, okay? This would quite literally be a PCA situation 2.0. I don't see how it's not for the Mets in this situation, right? I mean, how can you land Wilson Contreras, who's been one of the best offensive catchers in all baseball, one of the best overall catchers in all baseball this year, represent the NL in regards to the All-Star game, right? How can you land him without giving up at minimum a top 5, a top 6 prospect? I just don't see a world where you do that. And while the Mets are all in this season, they absolutely are. This is why they're evaluating all options here. They're putting their feet in the waters of all different teams and testing the market to see what will be best for them. And that's a big thing. The Mets need to make sure that they avoid what transpired last year, folks. They evaluated endless different scenarios leading up to the trade deadline and the trade deadline itself, but they ended up with Javi Baez and Trevor Williams, which was underwhelming. The Mets did get offensive production, which didn't hurt. Baez was awesome for them offensively. There's no denying that. That man was an on-base king, was hitting for, upwards of 300. He looked great. However, when evaluating the rest, the Mets really missed out on a lot of guys that they were pushing for and really didn't have as good a plan B's, C's, D's, F's, Z's, going all the way down to Z. This is what I really like about what Billy Upper and the Mets are doing right now. All these rumors are coming out as we speak, but there are, while not a drastic amount of DH options that are affordable by the deadline, there are a handful, and the Mets are really in deep with every single one. They're evaluating every single market, so the Mets know that even if they don't land Juan Soto, right? I would assume that would be a pipe dream as an understatement if the Mets land Juan Soto at this juncture, right? I would assume that Josh Bell, the Mets are slightly on the outside looking in right now, again, because the Nationals are just stubborn. So even though that you lose out on those guys, you have options. You have Trey Mancini, right? You have JD Martinez that we'll get into here in a minute. You have CJ Cron, who, even though his home and away splits aren't pretty, he is a guy that absolutely rakes against left-handed pitching, something that is to a higher magnitude than someone of Trey Mancini, for instance. JD Martinez is a different story. And then you have other type depth bats, if you go down the list, that's separate from Contreras. You have the Brandon Drurys of the world. You even have Kyle Farmer, who can rake against lefties as well. There are bat options out there, but thankfully the Mets, again, are really testing everything here, so that way they know if they go all in for one player, that they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, knowing that they can also pivot to potentially a better option, a more affordable option for the farm, and still be just as effective, if not better, potentially on a package deal to evaluate things post-trade deadline and go on a run this year. So I just want to go on that quick rant because it's very easy for us Mets fans to get caught up in the idea that the Mets absolutely have to land this one player. Look, I'm going to tell you straight up, Josh Bell has always been my favorite player for the Mets to land offensively. That is a name, Juan Soto. Always has been. How can he not be when he's a switching feet on this year on upwards of a 25 home run or so pace with 100 RBIs, and he's hitting great from both sides of the plate, a 300 average, a high OBP, a 900 OPS. How could I not want Josh Bell? other than his lack of defensive versatility. Of course I want Josh Bell. Who doesn't? But the Mets don't land Josh Bell. This is not a situation where the Mets are at fault here, in my opinion, but rather the Nationals being stubborn and purposely wanting an in-division tax just for the sake of trying to entertain the idea of trading with the Mets. That's red flag. That's the issue. I honestly think that if the Nationals aren't in the same division as the Mets, a trade already happens by now. The Mets love Josh Bell. They would love him on this team. They wouldn't mind a reliever from them either. But again, this is why you have to evaluate the market and see what is best fit for the team, not just right now, but also going forward. If you're going to unload the farm, there are players to do it to. Rentals are not one of them. That's why Juan Soto, you give up an arm and you give up everything for, right? Even if that doesn't happen now, that could happen in the offseason should he not be dealt. Same thing with some other big names out there. Say, I don't know, with Shohei Ohtani, should he not be dealt until at minimum the offseason. Those are the kind of guys that if you're going to pony up and give a good amount of prospect pool to, you do it for those specific players, not guys that are just going to walk potentially in the offseason. And if you don't make it all the way this year, then it's nothing short of how a lot of people would view it as a failure, believe it or not. But going back now to what I was ranting about, guys, let's get into JD Martinez, because JD Martinez I originally had on today's thumbnail for people watching on YouTube, but now I had to change it because the news kind of changed. It's not because of Martinez, but rather Trey Mancini over the past hour and a half of the time recording this, folks. But JD Martinez, I absolutely love. Look, the Mets have Daniel Vogelback, who kills righties. It's been known that the Mets aren't against going for that platoon role for the DH spot, but with the willingness of having one guy that's more of that everyday player. But Buck loves his versatility, right? That way, if you bring in, say, hypothetically, JD, he's starting more often than not games, right? However, JD, in, say, a 3-game series, you might have a matchup, especially if you say view a righty and a lefty. You have him against a righty, you have him against a lefty, but against another righty, maybe you bring in Vogelback, because I love JD Martinez, even him as a veteran. The Boston Red Sox have been absolutely brutal, especially in the month of July. They're show what they once were when they were on their hot streak throughout the vast majority of the season. And there's no denying that JD Martinez is probably the best bat out there, actual raw bat out there for the Mets, not named Josh Bell. However, the biggest issue with someone like JD Martinez is, one, how available is he going to be, right? There is no full-on commitment from the Red Sox to sell just yet. And that's a risk that the Mets simply cannot take with the Trey Mancini, with the Josh Bell, even with the CJ Cron markets heating up. If the Mets decide to wait for JD Martinez and the Red Sox decide to not sell until potentially the day before the trade deadline, last minute they say, yeah, we're going to hold on to JD, then the Mets just lost out on Mancini, Bell. So that, and even Contreras, that is the risk of going all in for a Boston Red Sox right now, because whether we like it or not, they have not fully committed to selling or buying. And that's always going to be the biggest pain in the ass, even with the Orioles to an extent. But all indications are that Baltimore is still willing to sell, especially for guys that are basically pending free agents, and surely Trey Mancini is one of them. However, JD Martinez is having a phenomenal year for the Red Sox, as he always does. I mean, no matter where Martinez goes, he's absolutely raked in his career. This year, only 9 home runs, but I mean, 38 RBIs. You're looking at on the season, let me look down on the numbers here, a 302 average, a 368 on base percentage, an 849 slug. But the biggest thing about JD Martinez, folks, is the fact that he absolutely murders left-handed pitching. And that's the biggest appeal. If you get JD Martinez, he will be your lefty killer. Again, the guy that's in your lineup every 2 or 3 days. However, this is not something that's going to be in there. Let me put it this way. He's not a guy that's going to necessarily be in there every day, but every couple of days, especially because JD has dealt with back spasms. So that is something to weigh with a guy in his mid-30s now. And Buck, again, loves to make sure he gets his guys staying healthy. So if you have that nice balance of JD play most days while Vogelback off the bench and platooning DH getting the start some days, it's a nice kind of balance there, in my opinion, especially because JD, 329 average, a 924 OPS against left-hand starting pitching this year. And against left-handers overall, including bullpen relievers, he's batting a 368 with an over 1,065 OPS on the year. JD Martinez is the man. And against right-hand pitching, he's batting 284 with his sub-800 OPS. So he can hit righties really well. He just rakes against lefties, takes advantage. That's something that, unfortunately, the Mets haven't had a lot of guys be able to do for them. And that's something that surely JD Martinez can do. And I would love JD Martinez just as much as the next guy on the New York Mets. Same way that I would love a lot of overall guys currently on the Mets, guys. But JD Martinez, I'm not going to expect to land with the Mets unless things truly fall out here with Trey Mancini. Because as we pivot to the Trey Mancini sweepstakes, folks. They have picked up over the past couple hours Michael Marino, who's been doing a phenomenal job covering the Mets. Same thing with Pat Ragazzo and others. Marino has come out today, however, and has said that, again, the Mets have shifted their focus already from Josh Bell because they know that the Nationals basically aren't budging right now. You have Wilson Contreras, you have Robertson, two guys they would absolutely love in a package deal. However, because of Contreras' expected value, what you have to give up for him, they're also zoning in heavily on Trey Mancini to the point, and I quote, the Mets are very clearly Trey Mancini at this point in regards to focus. That is their number one guy. That is their number one target at the time of talking to you guys. Now, let me emphasize, just because the Mets are talking heavily for Trey Mancini right now does not guarantee that anything will happen. A trade could happen during the stream, a trade could happen tomorrow, a trade could happen a couple days from now, or nothing happens at all. This will not be the first rodeo if the Mets had trade discussions that got awfully close, but fell short because they just didn't reach the right price for either side or both, as a matter. We saw the San Diego Padre trade rumors that were this close to happening right before the start of the season with Dom Smith being a factor in that deal, right? And it fell through. Why did it fall through? We knew the factors then. So again, until something is official, what we know at this juncture is that Trey Mancini, however, is towards the tops of the Mets list right now. And I really like Trey Mancini. He is an upgrade. The Mets go from Dom Smith and JD Davis to Daniel Vogelback and Trey Mancini at the DH position. I'm not complaining any day of the week. Trey has been in a little bit of a slump as of late. I think he's 0 for his last 11. Not a big deal. Again, you're going to have slumps throughout the season. Every single batter goes through it. He was a healthy scratch, and not a healthy scratch, but he was off the bench for today for the Orioles, just because, again, they want to give him a day's rest. And Mancini has already come out publicly and has said that it looks like the Mets have, Mancini has embraced that his next couple games at Baltimore will surely be his last. He does expect to be dealt, and I don't blame him. I think he's going to be traded too, and I would love him on the New York Mets. Now, obviously, Trey Mancini offensively isn't to the same length of a JD Martinez or a Josh Bell. However, I think you could rightfully argue he's probably the best option that is not those players. And I would even argue that he might be better than CJ Cron, just because of how nervous I am with CJ Cron's abysmal home and away splits. I mean, if Cron didn't have those drastic home away splits, I think the Mets need to go all in on this guy for a guy that has 80 RBIs already this season and 25 home runs or so. I mean, 25 plus. I mean, Cron's a huge power bat. I just don't know if he can make that adjustment this down in the season with the altitude change, with getting adjusted with his breathing in a different park for the rest of the year versus him going to a team in the offseason. Because let's not forget, Nolan Arenado was traded from the Colorado Rockies to the Cardinals in the offseason, right? That gave him time to get ramped up and ready for spring and ready for the year. When you do an in-season change for guys that are hitting well in not Baltimore and Colorado, but aren't hitting well out of Colorado, it's a difficult adjustment. So I don't love the idea of committing to CJ Cron when you know that there is that potential risk. I think that the Mets know that as well. They have Cron on their radar. They wouldn't mind him, but he clearly isn't the number one guy for them. And I don't blame them at all. I think those splits, again, are things to be wary of. And the Mets are certainly, and plus to add one more thing, the Rockies are just so damn stubborn. Every single year, they don't know what to do. Even when they're supposed to be full-blown sellers, they still decide not to do that. So it's a wait and see. But let's look now, guys, at the numbers here when evaluating the New York Mets, and Trey Mancini for that matter, because Mancini on the year is having a really strong season. I mean, he has around a 270 average, right around an 800 to sub 800 OPS. He has right around a 345 on base percentage, just over 400 slug. Don't love the slugging for someone like Mancini, but I will give him a slight benefit of the doubt. Mancini is someone that would have 17 to 18 home runs if he played every single game right now at Citi Field. If you guys don't know, Camden Yards has changed, and it's nasty now. It's for pull hitters, even though that Mancini spreads the field. But as a right-handed bat that's trying to pull a baseball for a home run, it's so much more difficult than it ever has been in Baltimore because they push your left field wall back. So a lot of these balls that should be home runs are now dropping to either doubles or deep flyouts. That's been the case for Mancini and many others. So they've had to adjust their swing to not be as home run happy, but be more spreading the field, be more gap to gap. That is what we've seen right now with someone like Trey Mancini on the year. And when looking at his splits right now for Trey Mancini on the season, again, Mancini's having a strong year. He's doing well against lefties. Not phenomenal, but not terrible either. He has a 260 average and a 700 OPS. The biggest thing with him against lefties this year is had that lack of slugging. Surprise, surprise. Pete Alonso, a lot of other guys have something to say about that. But I do appreciate the fact that he's at least competent with the average, has been able to put the ball in play. Against righties this year, he has a 272 average and a roughly 800 OPS. So he's done really well against righties, as he has done the same. But the biggest thing, guys, that people are sleeping on when looking at Trey Mancini, some of you guys saying that, oh, that's not enough production against lefties. Well, listen to this. What has been the Mets' biggest kryptonite, folks, offensively? I don't think there's any denying that it hasn't just been lefties, but it's been lefty starting pitching. If you feel different, let me know in the chat. I would say that from an offensive standpoint, this has been the Mets' biggest problem all year long, is hitting against left-handed starters. Bullpen, a little bit different of a situation. However, what has Trey Mancini done against left-handed starters this year, folks? He's batting roughly 290 with an 830 OPS, 6 home runs, 19 RBIs, and 32 games. Trey Mancini's best numbers out of all of his splits this entire year are against left-handed starters. What have the Mets struggled most with all year long offensively? It's left-handed starters. So for people that don't think that he knows how to hit lefties, he certainly does. And he knows how to hit it to a higher magnitude than maybe you would have thought. Because again, if you're looking at overall left-handed pitching, including bullpen, I can see where you're not as enticed because he has around a OPS 130 points lower. But against left-handed starters, the guy that you see for a minimum 5, 6, 7+ innings in the game, he's raking against. So I understand why the Mets like that for someone like him. And the same way that I understand why the Mets really like JD Martinez, but Martinez is more of a wait and see. And I don't think the Mets right now can really risk waiting and seeing what Boston is going to do unless they come out real quick and say, hey, we're going to sell. Let's get into this, guys. Give me one more second, and then we'll go from there. Yes, I'm excited about Mancini. Then, yes, the Mets offense has been a struggle. If you don't think Mancini would help this Mets bullpen, then this offense, then you're not just a casual, but you're not paying attention. You go keep rolling Dom Smith and JD Davis and see how that's going to work for you. Again, people, I find it so hilarious that there are Mets fans out there that for some reason aren't under the notion that a Trey Mancini and other big name bats out there wouldn't be a great upgrade for this team. I think it's the most foolish take out there. And I would like to emphasize once more, Trey Mancini isn't the first guy on my list personally. I have Josh Bell and JD Martinez ahead of him. However, I have Trey right around there at number 3. I really do. I like Andrew Benintendi a lot as well. He's a big contact guy. Mets don't seem to be really involved in him. I know the Yankees have shown interest again after being out on him. So when I'm evaluating the guys out there, I understand why the Mets like Mancini so much. And why don't you like Mancini? For one, he's a guy that comes in, gives you defensive versatility. And in case you're wondering just how important defensive versatility, folks, Mancini being able to play in the corner outfield could be the X factor in the Mets landing another bat or not. The Mets do commit and say land a JD Martinez, which I'm not complaining. However, there's no deny that if the Mets say land Martinez, they're not landing any more offensive pieces. The only potential for the Mets to land another bat, in my opinion, I think most would agree right now, is if they get a guy that can play more than just DH and first base. Mancini can handle the corner outfield when needed, especially with the Mets having Mark Canha out of the lineup every 1 of 3 games. It just makes that much more sense if they could roll out Mancini in the corner outfield, and then that could give you more of a willingness to maybe add on a guy like a Brandon Drury that can battle things out with Escobar, who's been so piss poor all year long at the third base position. I know Drury doesn't have the glove, but he does have the bat. You get creative with your matchups. Drury's having a phenomenal year, even with inflated numbers playing in Cincinnati. He's still putting up pretty much the same home run and RBI splits, regardless of if he's home or away. The only difference is, again, the contact and the OPS there. But again, that's expected when you're playing a batter's box that you see there in Cincinnati. But again, the point is, if the Mets land Mancini, that probably gives them a better option than any other batter out there, DH-wise, given the versatility to go out and potentially land one more for a reasonable price. We saw what the Braves did last year and landing the likes of Adam Duvall, Jorge Soler, and Eddie Rosario. And what did those 3 players come in common with? What was the biggest factor for them? They were the reason why the Atlanta Braves won the World Series. You had 2 of those 3 guys being playoff MVPs in different rounds for them in playoffs. I mean, those were guys that were really slept on. Eddie Rosario was injured when he got traded to the Braves last year, and he was dealt for Pablo Sandoval that was just cut from the Cleveland right away. They had no interest in even taking it. They just gave Eddie away for free because they didn't want to deal with his contract. Then you saw Jorge Soler. He wasn't dealt for any prominent prospects whatsoever. Adam Duvall, same thing applies. There wasn't anything drastic in any of these deals for depth bats that were either big swing and miss, had some nice home run power, or were more contact guys, and all of them stood up when need be. So I think not to look at the Braves playbook to a T and say that, hey, we can have that same success, But knowing that the Mets going out there and landing multiple bats, even if they're to a high magnitude and a low magnitude when looking at the big names and knowing who they are exactly, doesn't change the fact of the potential impact that they could have. Who the hell knew Yoenis Cespedes to a T when he was acquired by the Mets back in 2015? If everyone in the chat right now says that they love Cespedes and knew everything about him during his time in Oakland and with Boston and Detroit, I find that hard to believe. Cespedes came out of nowhere, came to the Mets and had a drastic impact, right? My point is that the Mets, just because it might not be the first name that we're all glued to right away, does not change the potential impact that they will have on this team. And the big thing, not just for Mancini, giving you versatility to add one more bat, the one more thing that makes this interesting is a potential package deal. It's already been reported that the Mets really like Jorge Lopez, who's having a phenomenal year. We're right around a 1.5-year rate or so for the towering right-hander, 6'3", 200+ pounder, right around there for the Baltimore Orioles. However, if Lopez's price is too much, there is one more man in there that could be feasible that is not named Perez, but in Dylan Tate. Dylan Tate is another reliever to keep an eye on. That it does seem from rumblings we're seeing over social media right now could be a feasible fit for the New York Mets. I like Dylan Tate a lot. I think you kill two birds with one stone if you acquire someone like him. And I think that's the best option right now for the New York Mets. If they're going to trade with Baltimore, do their absolute best to do a package deal. This is not someone where they should be going out of their way to make sure that they land. I mean, if the Mets can land more than just a bat, I think that's huge. Dylan Tate on the year, folks, has a 2.4 ERA and 45 innings for the Baltimore Orioles. He is a free agent in 2026, so he has a couple more years of control for the 28-year-old, 6'2", roughly 200-pound right-hander. He has a 3.5 expected ERA, so not terrible. Not great, but not terrible either. Still strong numbers. A 3.12 SI ERA, which I really like. And looking at his whip here, let me pull it up. Give me 1 second, everybody. He has a 1.02 whip. I'm pretty sure that's right around the exact same as that being in Jorge Lopez. So I like that, or pardon me, maybe that was Carl Edwards I was thinking of from the Nationals. I think it was him. And the Mets can do a package deal, especially with Baltimore. If they're going to land Mancini, that is the route to go. You get a big reliever, while you can still add on one more reliever if you go for just Robertson, maybe by himself, from the likes of, yes, that being in the Chicago Cubs. Or you go a different route. Maybe you want to go and really get that lefty. Maybe you really want Andrew Chafin that the Mets have shown interest in from the Detroit Tigers. They've also shown interest in Mantiply from the D-backs, but I don't think that's happening. Mantiply has been a shell of what he once was over his past 15 outings with over 5-year rate. He looked phenomenal, was unhittable to start the year, has really gotten shaken up a bit in his past, 15 to 20 outings now. So I think if the Mets are evaluating the bullpen for a lefty, Andrew Chafin, I'd imagine, is towards the top of their list, as he should be. Far better than Gregory Soto, in my opinion. Soto doesn't have control, and Mets need control more than ever in this bullpen. That's why Joely Rodriguez almost feels inevitable to be DFA'd. And yeah, so I mean, when evaluating the options, guys, I'm by all means welcoming a Trey Mancini and potential package deal for a reliever with open arms, especially in the scenario where the Mets are not done with their offensive moves. Even if they are, I don't think it's the end of the world. But trust me when I say that if you want the Mets to land potentially one more bat, along with getting another DH type, Trey Mancini is the best option out there when looking at versatility. Buck has emphasized so much how important it is for guys to stay healthy. The Mets are right around the oldest team in baseball, right? You need to make sure you have these guys down the stretch. That's why he only starts Canna every 2 or 3 days usually. But again, these guys are getting worn out. At least Gourmet looked so good in the first half. Is coming down to earth. Isn't that same contact hitter that he once was? He's regressed as you'd expect. Eduardo Escobar has been a glaring hole in this Mets lineup time and time again. Are the Mets going to be willing to roll him out there every single day still? That's a great question. That's why a Brandon Drury, another guy along those lines depth-wise, can be really feasible for the Mets and can have a great impact for them. So all I know is that the Mets, they're going to be making moves. Maybe they're going to make a move tonight. Maybe they're going to make the move in the next couple of days. I don't think that landing Trey Mancini is anything to scoff at whatsoever, as long as the Mets surely did their due diligence in the other markets, and I fully expect that they have, because everything that's been reported this juncture would make you think that they absolutely have. They went all in on Soto. Look at that, whereas that has gone them because it's the Nationals. They really went all in on Josh Bell at this point, but the Nationals aren't going to do anything short other than the Mets giving a bonus, adding more than they should for 2 rentals, and the Mets don't want to do that with the Nationals of all teams. So I understand that. The Nats don't even want to further discussions with them right now. There's been no growth there. Then when looking at JD Martinez, the Mets love JD Martinez. I know Chaim Bloom loves Dom Smith. So that could be a feasible fit. That I don't think that's impossible to still get done. However, that is not the Mets' main focus if we're basing things on current reports. By the time we talk next tomorrow, guys, for all we know, reports could be completely different. This thing is moving so crazy. It's changing so much. So another thing, don't get hung up. You know, I'm putting you guys onto the latest reports and rumors, sharing my opinions. But like the Josh Bell news, it's already changed in regards to potential outcome in a 24-hour span. Who knows what's going to happen here with Trey Mancini? The Mets may land him. They may not at all. It's just a wait-and-see situation, everybody. So give me 1 second. I'm checking Twitter right now to see if anything is changing on regards to the rumor front here. Give me 1 second, guys. But while I'm talking, while we're waiting here, let me actually get guys in the chat what do you call it? Let me say this. Let me get a poll for you guys. Oh, yes, Victor, keep talking up, my friend. Keep talking up. I'm happy you've been in the chat. I'd hate to see you go, truly. And that's not sarcasm, I assure you. Let's get in here, guys, and let's get this poll for you guys now. And thank you guys for 125 likes. I appreciate that. We're almost halfway. We're trying to get upwards of 300 by the end of the live show. I'm going to get a poll in the chat for you guys to see what player you guys would like the most personally. And I'll go from there. Okay. Oh my goodness. I'm glad that someone said this in chat because I forgot as I was ranting. Yeah, a big thing that we need to discuss as well, guys, is Daniel Vogelback. I don't know why I didn't say it. Guys, stop. Benjamin Dover on Twitter is reporting Mancini and Perez to Mets. Look at the name. Look at the names. Guys, stop falling for the fake accounts. Please, I beg of you. Please. The man's name is literally Ben Dover, and he started his account literally during this past month. Stop falling for the accounts. Stop listening. Stop reciting everything you see on Twitter. Everything that I'm telling you guys now is from factual reporting. None of this is outlandish at all. This is all coming from reliable sources that we've seen been covering the Mets. Stop it, please. Like even the MLB trade rumors, the MLB trade rumors, like all these different Twitter accounts. They're not reliable until we see something happen. They're not, especially the guys that are namers like Mike and last name is Hawk. Put them together. What does that sound like? Then Benjamin and Dover. Put them together. What does that sound like? No such thing as factual reporting. That I respectfully disagree. 1,000%. I completely disagree with that notion. But let's now get into Daniel Vogelback. Because Vogelback, I love Vogie. I don't want to see him gone. And I don't think Vogelback is going to go anywhere. However, there have been rumblings. Reliable sources. I mean, I say reliable sources, and then I'm also adding Andy Martino. So take that as you will. As much as I despise Martino, he isn't BSing with the reports that are coming out, especially leading up to the deadline. He wasn't BSing in the offseason about the Mets not pursuing Chris Bryant in the post lockout, among many other moves. He just drives us nuts. If Martino wasn't the schmuck that he is, Mets fans would look at him with so much more credibility than what we do. But he always goes out of his way to throw hit pieces and rain on any and every parade when the Mets are playing well or anything along those lines. So it's hard to look at Martino and be like, I trust this guy because Martino's just such a schmuck. However, he does have sources. He's been right and he's going to continue to be right about a lot of this stuff. He has said that the Mets, they have considered flipping Vogelback. I have heard from others as well. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that would be a big head scratcher because if you're going to give up someone I'm calling Holderman for Vogie just to flip him, then that has to be a deal that's really prominent. So I don't expect Vogelback to be dealt. I would really be caught off guard by that. But however, if it does happen for whatever reason, you guys at least see it, pardon me, here, it is a potential. I don't expect it to happen, but it isn't impossible. Sorry, guys. It's been hard for me to speak today, as you can tell. But yeah, Vogie, I don't expect to go anywhere. Just a bizarre one. And Martino is a 1,000% a grade A clown. That's the issue. If this guy wasn't a schmuck, wasn't a clown that he was, then we'd have a different discussion. He just has to be like the biggest dick of a personality, pardon my French, on Twitter. That's a beat reporter. I just don't get why he needs to be the way that he does. And Ben, I appreciate that. Appreciate everyone in the chat right now, guys. I'm checking reports as we speak. And rest assured, guys, if anything does happen with the Mets tonight, I will do my best to cover it. I do have to record my podcast tonight, so hopefully that doesn't interfere. But again, we'll see. And yeah, Ben, we don't have to agree. I don't expect everyone to agree with me. I appreciate everyone's opinions. And what I like most about doing this show and doing the channel, guys, is I like hearing your perspectives, because my perspective has changed in certain notions and certain things. I know that my perspective has helped change a lot of other people's perspectives as well. So it's good to have these discussions. I mean, look, the main guy that I could want could be the complete drastic guy that you guys would prefer. And that's perfectly fine. Again, that's why these discussions are fun. 1,000%. And I'm not complaining one bit. Travis Blankenhorn has cleared waivers and was sent outright to AAA Syracuse. Thank God, because Blankenhorn was doing really well with Syracuse. I'm glad that he cleared. I'm surprised that no team picked him up, if I'm being honest with you. But I'm really, really glad that the Mets did not lose Blankenhorn, because he's been a stud in AAA for the Mets. I will take that to the bank any and every day of the week. Oh, the Braves defense just handed the Phillies defense just handed the Braves 2 runs. So it sounds like a day that ends in Y. I'm too high on Mancini. I disagree. I don't think, let me put it this way. I really like Mancini, but I'm high on him not just for what he brings to the Mets from a bat perspective. I'm high on him from what he brings to the Mets from a defensive versatility perspective, knowing that gives the Mets leeway to potentially land one more bat, because if they land just a DH/first base type, they really aren't going to go out there and let anyone else, because they don't have that versatility at DH anymore. So that's what I like about Mancini. I trust his bat. I know that Mancini coming to the Mets 1,000% would be an upgrade over JD and Dom. And if you guys don't think that he is, I will reiterate once more, everybody. Trey Mancini, same way for JD Martinez, just to a lesser level. Trey Mancini against left-hand starters this year especially, even though he's batting around 270 and just under 800 OPS on the year. Mancini against left-hand starters, something that the no Mets can do in this damn lineup, it feels like, every single day. They couldn't even score a run on Blake Snell in their last start, for God's sake, after he was getting worked every single inning. However, Mancini's batting right around 290 with right around 850 to 900 OPS. I mean, if you guys don't think that's productive, I don't know what to tell you. The Mets are being creative about what the players are trying to add right now. Mancini has that familiarity with Buck Showalter during their time in Baltimore. He's 1,000% an upgrade on this team and can 1,000% be a big impact for them to help make this lineup deeper than what it is. And if you don't think that, that's perfectly fine. We can share our opinions. I respectfully disagree. But again, I know that not everyone in the chat agrees with me too. So again, I get it. I 1,000% get that. Drury against lefties is phenomenal, Steve. I know. And that's why I wouldn't mind at all if the Mets landed Drury after still landing a Mancini or someone along that wavelength. Do I believe Contreras and Mancini both end up on the Mets? No, I don't. If the Mets land Mancini, I think it's almost a guarantee that they don't land a Contreras. Because the reason why, in part, why the Mets are zoning in on Mancini right now is in part because of how high Mancini's price is for a rental. The Mets are not trying to give up a king's ransom for a rental for a guy they're more than likely going to let walk in the offseason. However, when you look at the likes of a Trey Mancini, a Brandon Drury, these are guys that are not going to cost you a king's ransom, yet can have a drastic impact on your team right away. That's what's really appealing about them for sure, along with their defensive versatility. Drury can play at third, he can play at second, he can play at first, he can play at DH, he can even play in the corner outfield if you need him. Versatility is key for a Mets team. That's what they're doing right now. Let's see, Billy in the lab right now, like Dexter 1,000%. I love the fact that he said that. And I agree. And I agree that the Mets need a catcher. I would say that's towards the top of their list. I'd say that from a position player standpoint, it's what they need the most. However, the Mets can address the catching position with upgrades that are over what they currently have, but just not to the magnitude of Contreras. Who would that be? Would it be a Sean Murphy from the Oakland A's? I saw someone mention in the chat. Would it be, I don't even know. Maybe Contreras' backup that you see there in with the Cubs, even though he's not doing anything crazy. He's still better than what the Mets currently have right now. And Yan Gomes. I mean, there's options. They aren't pretty names. The catching market is few and far in between in regards to what's available out there. But Contreras, again, he's going to cost you a lot. And I don't think the Mets want to do what the asking price is for Contreras. They really like Robertson. So I'd say if the Mets do a deal with the Cubs, it's far more likely to be Robertson versus the two of them. But again, anything can change. I know the Mets really want Contreras. They just know that he's a tough guy to try to land right now. Rather Vasquez, I wouldn't mind Vasquez from the Red Sox at all if they sell. And that's something that maybe the Mets can address more last minute if the Red Sox wait until the very last day or two to say that, hey, we are going to sell. If they're going to trade Vasquez, I'm 100% down. I think that's an upgrade for the Mets, 1,000%. No denying that. You ready for the Mets to kick the hell out of the Reds with the new acquisitions, Chris? Yes, I am. Looking forward to the game, my man. Christian Vasquez can't hit. He can hit far better than what the Mets currently got. Anything's better than literally anything right now is better than what they currently have. And guys, stop. If you're looking at any accounts, first of all, Bob Nightingale is not trustworthy. And two, if you see anything from Nightingale right now, it's a spam account. It's not actually him. So fair warning to everybody. Daniel Bard is phenomenal. Yeah. Let's see. I don't know. I always say your name wrong in the chat. It starts with a D. You know who I'm talking about. But yeah, Daniel Bard's phenomenal. He has like a 1.6 ERA or between 1.6, 1.8 while pitching in cores. He's doing great. However, there has been no reported connection between Bard and the Mets at this juncture. Could change, but I feel like the Mets, if they wanted to do a deal with them, they would want CJ Cron as well, and I don't think that's going to happen. What's my thoughts on the Subway Series? I'll have all my thoughts on the Subway Series for you guys later. Because like I said, I will be recording my podcast tonight, folks. Gonna stay tuned for that. I'll be out on the channel 12 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Huge Subway Series preview along with a fairly quick Padres recap. We won't expand too much more there. We're on to the Subway Series focus now. We'll expand a little bit more on rumors, but for certain the Subway Series will be the main focus of our next podcast coming out tomorrow. So stay tuned for that one. And I also apologize if there's a slight lag in the chat, folks. It tends to happen. It is what it is. Hopefully it's nothing drastic, though. Great job, Wardy. Torn between Bell and JD. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the donation. Gentlemen's Hangout Podcast. Appreciate that. To make it easier for you, I don't think the Mets are going to land either of them, so if I'm being honest. I think Mancini is the most likely. I don't think I know he is right now, reportedly. So you being torn between Bell and JD ain't going to change much, my man. Other than personal preference. But yeah, that's really about it. It seems like Mancini is the Mets' main focus right now. Agree with your Drury and Mancini aspect. Thank you, Jason. Again, it isn't a lot. If the Mets land Mancini, they could be done offensively. However, you would imagine that his versatility gives the Mets potential of landing one more bat. Who would that be? Who knows? But again, it's going to be exciting to find out with the assumption that they land Mancini. Or if they don't, then hey, we'll see who it's going to be. Maybe it will be JD Martinez. Maybe they will see if the price changes on Contreras and go all in for that package. There's endless possibilities here, and I promise you guys that next time we talk, we're going to have different discussions than what we have right now because stuff is changing so much. Does MLB Nerds have sources when he wants to? He was wrong a lot in the offseason, so I wouldn't call him necessarily credible. I think he's just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Just like anyone else, any type of these, rumor accounts, they're just taking any and every rumor from either a really credible source or a source that's the farthest from credible, and again, seeing what's going to hit in the end. Let's see. Pet Mets with a $25 donation. Thank you so much for that, Pet Mets. Type in the chat to you. Pet Mets says, I agree with you about Mancini. He will be a nice addition. Sean Murphy doesn't treat me, and he's only 27. Really need a lefty for the bullpen. However, while I do think the Mets can use a lefty for the bullpen, I think that they are getting that in David Peterson. I don't think we're going to see Peterson start another game for the year, if I'm being quite honest with you, Mets fans. As long as there are no injuries, I don't think anything's going to happen. I'm hearing there are 2 relief pitchers, Mancini in the deal. Mike, where are you hearing this from, Mike? 2 relievers from the Orioles? I would be ecstatic. However, I'm wondering how much we're giving up if that's the case. I'm like, just the thought of Tate and Perez or Tate and Lopez would knock my socks off, but I'm not getting my hopes up on it. It would be insane, though. I know that much. And something, guys, I don't know. I just got a gut feeling that the Mets will have Trey Mancini on their roster in the next 24 hours. So should that happen, we will gladly discuss it when it happens, of course. But yeah, Pet Mets, I appreciate the donation. I just think the biggest thing, again, is while Chafin would be awesome for the pen, I think the Mets can handle what is currently happening right now with Peterson, lefty-wise. I don't think that they're going to go out of their way for a lefty reliever as they're going to go out of their way for just a really good reliever in general, regardless on his handedness. And Thomas, I'm aware. I focused in on him in the offseason. He was more wrong than right. He's not reliable at all. If it happens, he's going to claim that he had it. He didn't have shit. Pet Mets, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. It's easy for accounts like that to blow up because everyone eats up rumors for breakfast, especially that people that act like that they have sources that, oh, this was 1000% happening. You know, so wait, it's going to happen by this time tonight. And then look what happens. Nothing happens. Oh, Kyle, my goodness gracious. To suggest that the Mets are getting cheap right now is the most bullshit statement. And we're going to go on a rant real quick. And here's why. I just explained in context how and why the Mets would or wouldn't land each of the players that they're connected to right now. So unless you just completely blow over that for the past hour, if you just chimed in, I highly suggest, with all due respect, you go back earlier in the show. To have the audacity to call what the Mets are doing right now cheap is absolute blasphemy. Now, don't get it twisted, however. If the Mets do go out of their way, let me put it this way. If the Mets end their trade deadline and don't do anything offensively outside of Vogelback, if they don't even do things to a Mancini level offensively, and they don't bolster the bullpen, I will call this team out just like you will right now. 1000%. But I don't expect that to happen. I think the Mets are going to go all out. They're heavy in these talks for a reason. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just think that is the silliest notion for a Mets team. That, again, if it isn't for them spending literally an astronomical amount this past offseason, the Mets are not in first place right now. The Mets aren't even a consideration for a playoff team. So, yeah, no. With all due respect, either go back earlier in the show and understand the context of why the Mets would or wouldn't land these players, or just continue to have that closed mind thought process all you want. Tyler, let's see. What's my ideal package for Mancini reliever? I think Khalil Lee would be a piece for sure. I think the Mets are okay with partying with him. I think Khalil Lee would be in a deal. I think it depends on what types of prospects they're looking for. I think Dom Smith. I think if Dom is not dealt to the Cubs or Red Sox, I think Dom could be a fit as that first base / DH replacement, a young, controllable guy that would be feasible. One of him or JD. I think one of him or JD can make a lot of sense, actually, for a team in Baltimore that's in a win-now stage. Not win now, but is on the come-up. You know what I mean? That they can use guys that can be effective potentially and have a good place playing every day and a change of scenery. I also think that you're looking at a starter like a Hamill, like a Buto, potentially. There are many guys I think could be feasible fits, part of a deal, but those are just some names that popped in my head for different reasons. Jaden, thank you so much for the donation. Let's see. What's up, Rory? You're gonna be at the game tomorrow. Jaden, I'm actually not. I'm gonna be at the game on Wednesday, my man. So that is a game that I will be at. Stay tuned for that. Austin Contreras from Mancini. Also, are you asking for my preference or what do I think is more likely? If you're asking for preference, I'd probably say Contreras just for team need. However, I love Mancini, so I'm right there. And 2, I think Mancini is more likely. And 3, also, are we going to get another trade package video before deadline? Trade package video on like top 5 videos, not going to happen at this juncture. We're too close to the deadline. However, potential trade package, anything that is reported will be discussed in either a live show or it'll be discussed in a individual video like what we've been doing today and in previous days. Thank you for that donation, Jaden. I appreciate that. You'll be there August 4th. Awesome. I think I'm going to be at DC for August 3rd, which is the first game after the trade deadline. So whatever the Mets do, whatever they acquire, I'll see them in their first game more than likely. Why am I high on Mancini? I said it and I'll say it again. One, Mancini is good. Mancini is good. There's no denying that. He would come in and be one of the better bats in this lineup right away. 270 average, just under 800 OPS. His projects he would have 16 to 17 home runs if he played every game at Citi Field. That ballpark in Camden Yards is not helping him at all with the left field pushback. It is a factor. If you don't think it is, you're not paying attention. 2, Mancini spreads the field. He's not strictly a pull hitter. He hits robs the field. I love that for a guy. He's young. He's still in his prime of his career right now on a nice contract. That'll be a mutual option and a free agent in 2024 then, or 2023 the next year. And you also look at Trey Mancini and his versatility. He can play in right. He can play in any corner of the outfield. He can play at first, and he can even play at third if you really need him to, along with DH being his main position right now. He's been utilized. And the big thing also in Mancini is you're destined to do a package deal for a reliever. Baltimore has a plethora of really good relievers that would benefit this Mets team right now. I love the idea of his package deal. And another big thing is he murders left-hand starting pitching. That's something that little to no Mets are able to consistently do this year, at least enough to get the ball out of the infield, right? He has around a 290 average and just around an 850 OPS against left-hand starters. That's big. That helps the Mets in the platoon situation where you have Mancini against righties and lefties, and Vogelback can strictly only hit against righties. So you get that nice balance there. You get that versatility, and again, gives you that potential to land one more bat still. I don't think the Mets land another bat. They land JD Martinez. Now, I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying that it is nice that the Mets have more versatility. It's not a bad thing. The biggest gripe about acquiring first baseman / DH is when you have a plethora of them, there's only so much you can do in structuring your lineup, I should say. Don't think no moves will be made, Randy? Why? I would say buckle up, because I think you're going to be damn excited for when moves happen very soon. You think JD and Trey is possible? No, I do not. Not at all, actually. I think it's one or the other. 1,000%. I think Mancini is the likely. I don't think I know. I know Mancini is the likeliest fit right now because that's what's been reported. If that changes, it changes. But right now, Mancini is the man. He is their main focus at the moment. Let's see. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that, my friend. Let's see. Hey, Wary, Braves are also in on Mancini. John, where did you hear that report? Here's the thing as well. Keep that in mind. You want the Braves to get Mancini? Like, if that's the case, look, the Braves wanted Vogelback. They had interest in Vogelback. The Mets swiped him. The Mets swipe Mancini too. That'd be huge. So take more potential Braves targets away. I'm not griping about that whatsoever. As long as the Braves don't go out and land Josh Bell. But why would the Nationals do that? One, I don't see that happening. 2, I think the only one that could slightly concern me with the Braves is JD Martinez, but they just have such a plethora of DH / first base options that, I mean, just strictly DH, that I don't see it happening. They would be appealed by Mancini because Ball just got injured. Mancini can play corner outfield and command DH / first base, but mainly DH because they have Olsen. Insurance for Duvall? Exactly. Yeah, that would make sense. What other bat can we get if we get Trey? I would say you're looking at lower tier. I think like a Brandon Drury would be very feasible. Not a guarantee, though. I don't think the Mets are guaranteed to land another bat outside of one big one in Mancini or JD or anything along those lines. However, the likelihood is stronger for Mancini than it is with other batters because you got that versatility for the lineup. Vogelback, potential trade bait. Can I elaborate? Yeah, it's just, from what I know, it's been discussed in the organization. I don't know or think it's going to amount to anything. I just know that the Mets have toyed with that idea. To what extent, I can't tell you. I just know that it has been floated out there. So we'll see if he stands pat. I think he's going to stay with the Mets. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Would Peterson make sense in a deal for Mancini? Hell no. Especially with Lucchesi and Yamamoto. Nope. Yamamoto is not an MLB caliber pitcher at this juncture. Lucchesi's a big question mark for what he can impact the Mets down the stretch, if at all, this year. He's not going to be on the playoff roster, assuming that they make playoffs. No. Peterson's valuable to this team. You do not cough him up for a guy that only has, at most a year of control. He has a mutual option at the end of this year. I think he's a free agent next year. Or he can hit the market if they don't agree on a mutual option. Nope. Peterson's not going anywhere. He's one of the only good. He's quite literally like the only good lefty the Mets have in this entire team right now. Starting pitching or bullpen. You need Peterson now more than ever. He's not going anywhere. Henry, thank you so much for that donation. I appreciate you, my friend. Robert Powers, thank you so much for the $5 donut. Appreciate that a lot as well. Mancini's not in the lineup because he's, because they want to give him rest. However, I do think that Mancini has potential to be dealt in the next 24 to 48 hours. He's from Polk County, so I'm all in for him. Yeah, I know. And again, he's a fellow Paisan. How can he not want Mancini? He would look great. He would look phenomenal in orange and blue. There's no denying that. On the Giants sellers, they haven't committed yet. Or else I think we'd be talking a little bit about Jock Peterson. I know. I like Joey Flacco a lot. Braves are up by 1. Oh, so Phillies have come back with offense early. Okay. Yeah, I know Mancini expects to be traded because he knows he's going to be a New York Met. That's what I think's happening. Yeah, I know Mancini's in a slump right now, which actually benefits the Mets in acquiring him. Nothing drastic, but definitely doesn't hurt the Mets. Wilmer Flores is a lefty killer. We know that. Always has been. However, I don't think the Mets want Flores. I don't think a reunion happens. And guys, we're right around 200 likes, so continue smashing that like and subscribe on. Thank you guys all so much in advance. We're trying to get a 300 plus likes by the end of the live show. Greatly appreciate everybody. We'll probably be live here, I would imagine, for the next upwards of half hour, depending on how the chat's going. We've been having 600 strong. I love having these conversations. And again, there's been a lot of rumors going on tonight, so I genuinely have no clue if something is either going to happen tonight or in the coming days. But I do know that things are picking up for the Mets per usual, and Trey Mancini is at the forefront of it at this juncture. Wait, let me check real quick what the poll is at with you guys here in the live show. Bear with me. Okay, let's see. So, 27% of you guys want Mancini. 36% of you guys want Martinez. 30% of you guys want Contreras. And 6% of you guys want CJ Cron. Okay, gotcha. I would like all those players. I tend to agree, though. I tend to agree in regards to who I would want most. But again, it goes not just wants. It's really what is most feasible for this team right now, based on trade value and potential trade packages. And that is where someone like you see here, that in Mancini comes into play. I love his versatility. That's the biggest thing that I've always liked about him. Let's see. I would hate the Mets to get bullpen. Otherwise, we need Penn Arms badly after Kane injury. You would hate the Mets to get David. I don't see Robertson going to the Yanks. He had a falling out with them. That relationship is not what it once was. So I would be damn surprised if Robertson went back to the Yanks. I think the Yanks are going to bolster their bullpen, but I would, at this point right now, I would be surprised if Robertson landed back with the Yanks. John Means and Trey Mancini, not a chance. Not a chance. John Means is rehabbing Tommy John. Mets don't have any interest there. Feel like Trey could be dealt tonight? Well, I know you're saying that because things are picking up. It's definitely possible, but again, wait and see. I don't think Contreras is possible. I just don't see it. Contreras is not as possible as Mancini because of his value. So, as you see here on the graphic, there's a reason why Mancini is the number one target. What didn't you hear, Jacob, and laying me? I'm worried if the Mets make a move tonight, will I go live again? Yeah, as long as I'm available. As long as I'm available. I don't know why, but I'm getting this bad gut feeling that when I'm recording my podcast, something's going to happen. If so, we'll be able to break the news on the pod. And then as soon as we're done with the pod, I'll have to jump and do a show. So we'll see. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. By the time most people are watching this on replay, they'll be like, nothing happened, dummy. I'll be like, yeah, not surprised. Listen, Cubs, owe us Contreras after that PCA for Baez. Here's the thing. If the Mets traded for Contreras, they're likely to give up a top prospect again, just like they did for Baez last year. So it's the same situation over again. And I don't think the Mets want to give up a top prospect for him. That's the issue. Tate, Perez, Lopez, one of those three would be awesome to come to the Mets. And let's see, Zebson, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. Oh, Robertson, yeah. Yep. Worry, would you go live again if the Mets make it? I just said that, yeah. I would try my best to. That is correct. But yeah, guys, we're gonna wrap up the show in like 15 minutes. We're gonna do like about 20 of the show. So any other more comments, questions you guys got for me, by all means, ask away. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for chiming in. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show tonight. We've had phenomenal viewership. Thank you guys kindly for that. Again, you know the drill. When we cover any news rumors, this is a place to be. I don't gotta tell you guys that though. There's a reason why we're number one on YouTube with this stuff for a reason. And it's all because of you guys watching. So thank you kindly for that. What arm do you think we'll get? I think the Mets, if they're going to land an arm, I think it's going to be one of Tate or Perez. I feel like landing Lopez just might be a little bit harder. Might be too hard to swing with Baltimore. So if I'm a betting man, I will go with one of Perez or Tate from Baltimore. If we're talking about Mancini here. Josh Bell, you're a New Yorker Met. I would love Josh Bell. Sadly, Mets aren't favorites for him. Bard, I have no clue what Bard's status is because the Rockies are incompetent. We're probably not going to know until like the day of the deadline. Because they have no clue what they're doing always. Do I think if we get one bat, Mauricio will be called up? Zero chance. Trade JD Davis for a bag of chips and a microwave. At minimum, you got to make sure that you're going to get that microwave, but have a nice microwavable meal. Not chips. It's two separate. You got to kill two birds with one stone. If we're doing a package deal like this, I want you to get something that you could do a ready make that you pop in the microwave and you get that done. Okay. I don't want chips on the side. Nah, give me a meal that you can, it's pre-made, pop it in the microwave. I'll do that for JD. Fine. Vogelback is a tank. I love Vogelback. Worried, how about JD and Dom for an up-and-coming young pitcher, Holderman from the Pirates? Oh, Ed, I wonder what made you think of Colin Holderman. What a bizarre name. I wonder how good that kid is. Bell to Houston is horrifying, and it pisses me off because I know if they got Bell, that would be their first base replacement, and they would have then Yuli Gurriel on the bench, right? Bell would play first, Gurriel off the bench, and Alvarez at DH. That's disgusting. I already think the Astros are going to win it all this year. If it not be my favorite team, obviously. Astros, in my opinion, are the team to beat along with the Braves. They're up there. Yeah. Darren, my man, guys, let's get some hype. Let's get some love in the chat for the best Mets fan from the UK who just had a phenomenal trip. His first time at Citi Field. He got on-field access. He got to meet Buck. He got to meet Giraffe Neck Mark James, my buddies from the Mets Stuff Pod. He got to do all these crazy things. Of course, I was on vacation when he was in town. But my man, Darren, I hope you had a phenomenal experience. Thankfully, the Mets legged out a dub for you yesterday. That was huge. Silent Flame almost ready to take off. Thanks again for all the Mets fans that made my trip the last few days amazing at Citi Field. Shout out, Darren. This man is an absolute beauty. I cannot wait to meet up with you again, my man. For the first time, I should say, once you're back in the States. Hopefully soon enough. But yeah, my goodness, Darren, so happy for you. I mean, you looked like you had an absolutely electric time. And I hope you savored every moment, my man. You've seen people say Vientos for Mancini. I don't know about that one. I guess we'll wait and see. That would surprise me. I don't know exactly who the Mets have to give up for Mancini because it's going to be indicative on if there's other aspects of the deal. Assumably another reliever or two at most, right? So that'll change the potential direction of a deal, James. Appreciate your support no less. Bogart's available. Nothing's been said yet, and even if he is, the Mets are not going to land him. I promise you that. I would honestly say Bogarts has a far greater chance to land with either the Phillies or the Braves if he's going to go in the NL East. I think there's zero shot the Mets would land him. He's a guy that would go to a rival, I would imagine. Devers, I don't expect to go anywhere too, because I don't expect the Red Sox to let both walk. I think the Red Sox are going to be able to commit to Devers long term, still has another year or so of control. However, when you look at Bogarts, free agent at the end of the year, they already locked down Trevor Story. I think they have Story, especially as a safe space in case they can't bring Xander back. So yeah, if I'm a betting man, I would say that Bogarts is the guy to be parted with, either in a trade or in free agency between himself and Devers. I think that they're going to try their best to commit to Devers more than Xander. Mancini and a reliever will require a top 10 prospect, and may certainly do just that. Just depends on what prospect that is. That'll really give my honest opinion on it. Nick, do not trust baseball trade values. That thing has no clue how to operate whatsoever. I mean, they completely undervalue players just based on contract stats alone. They have Giancarlo Stanton in the negative because of his damn contract. I mean, no. With all due respect, baseball trade values is not something you should use to gauge a trade because it's so hypothetical, and not many times you see that actually line up with how deals are supposed to be, or end up being, I should say. Phillies just tied the game good. I'm a Phillies fan somehow, some way right now because I need them to beat those Braves, please. I wouldn't mind Benintendi at all, but I don't think Benintendi is high on the Mets' radar. They've shown interest, but I don't think that he's a main focus for them at this juncture. See, now we're talking. Trade Dom Smith for a mini fridge and a 12-pack of Coors Light. You lost me at Coors Light. I got to be honest. If you're going to drink piss water, I got my Coronas. I even got my Stellas at the top of the list before I think Coors is honestly one of the worst piss water drinks. Call me crazy. I don't know about you. I would even put the aluminum can Budweisers over Coors. That's how much I don't like Coors. I would put Land Sharks over Coors. We don't need to get on this beer rant right now to my people 21 and older, of course, but yeah, you got to do better than Coors. I'm not trading Dom for Coors. Corona, all right, you got yourself a deal. Stella, got yourself a deal. Maybe even Bud. Maybe even Bud. Nate, if anyone decides to drink with the amount of things I repeat in the stream, because I have to say the same stuff over and over again for people that just chime in, you guys will all be drunk off your face. My co-host of my podcast has been watching and said, I'm going to take a shot every single time that you say, what word was it again? He said, plethora. And I said, how are you not drunk already? Yeah, if you guys want to do a fun drinking game, just watch me for like 2 hours. You will be absolutely schmacked. I promise you. Mookie Betts is a negative 100 and Dylan Carlson is a plus 77. My point. My point. Exactly. Chris Bryant, no. Bryant's been injury prone. I'm so glad the Mets, didn't commit long term. I didn't want the Mets to go anything past 5 for him. And he signed a 7-year deal in Colorado. He's been injured for a vast majority of the year. He's been heating up now that he's been healthy, but no, Bryant's a liability. And that is a deal that I fully expect the Rockies to regret quite literally already if they haven't already. It made no sense for them to do that deal. I guess try to get more fans in the stands. But by God, that organization is in such disarray. None of them make sense whatsoever. Tanner Houck? I like Tanner Houck. I don't see that happening, though. The Braves should trade Ozuna for Bauer. I wonder what made you think of that one. Castellanos has been underwhelming for the Phillies all year long. That's true. Couldn't handle comments from a reporter. You want to hear about a trade tonight? It's a wait and see. It's definitely a wait and see. But guys, we're going to be wrapping up the show in the next couple minutes. So again, final questions, comments, and concerns you got for me, by all means, ask away. And then we'll go from there, guys. And guys, we're 50 likes away from 300 in the live show. Continue smashing that like and subscribe on. Thank you guys all so much in advance. Help us get to 17K subs as well. Greatly appreciate. But yeah, continue hitting those buttons. Thank you guys once more. JT Real Muto Stolons Arno. That's kind of funny. Podcast name is Bleav in Queens, and it is presented, I should say, by the Bleav Network. You can get it at Bleav.com. If you check out Bleav in Queens, you get it wherever you get your audio podcasts. Google, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, all of them. We're there and on YouTube as well. So it'll be on my YouTube channel tomorrow at 12 p.m. But if you want audio form, it comes out at 6 a.m. So stay tuned for that. John, thank you so much for the donation. John says, if we land Mancini, do the Mets do free peppers like Mancini family owns a pepper company? I love that idea. And I kind of hope that happens now that you brought it up, John. I love that. Shout out John for doing the investigative work. I did not even know that about Mancini's family. So now I want to try his peppers. If Soto goes to the Yanks, Judge walks, and I would fully expect the Mets to prioritize him. Any chance we get Mancini and Drury? I would say if the Mets get Mancini, that Drury is a potential. I'm not going to guarantee it at all. I'm definitely saying it's possible, though. MLB News Network said Mancini talks are heating up. MLB News Network, isn't that another one of the accounts? Let me check quick. It's you right? I thought you said MLB Network for a minute. Oh yeah, it is one of the BS accounts. I do follow them. No, you're right, Thomas. I do. Just because I want to see how right or wrong they are. I guess we'll see what happens. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, I got to get out of here. I got to go eat some late dinner. Then I got to record my podcast. So, guys, 6 a.m. Eastern, new podcast dropping, and it's a big one. Stay tuned for that. Then we got the pod as well, 12 p.m. Eastern. Trust me when I say you're going to want to watch this, not just because of the trade rumors and not just because of the Subway series. We got a lot to deep dive, and you guys are going to be pumped up once you see what the pod has in store. So thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Continue smashing those buttons and have a great rest of your night, evening, day. If a move happens late tonight, guys, rest assured we will cover it at some point late tonight. Even if it's not right to the T when it happens, hopefully close to. All I know is that moves look like they're going to come the next couple of days. Let's see if it's going to happen regarding our Amazons. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your night. And let's go Mets, baby. Talk to you guys again real soon.